Top of the SportsMax zone for this Thursday, a 5-wicket win over the Netherlands in the second one international earlier today has given the West Indies a winning 2-0 lead in their 3-match series. The toss was won by the Netherlands and they decided to bat. They were bowled out for 214 or 48.3 overs. Scott Edwards top scored with 68 and Max Adaud added 51. Akil Hossain was again the pick of the Windies bowlers, taking 4 wickets and chasing 215 to win. The Windies didn't start fluently and appeared in distress at 99 for 5. But Brandon King 91 not out and Casey Carter with an unbeaten 43 shared in an unbroken 118-run stand for the 6th wicket as the Windies posted 217 for 5 with 27 balls to spare. Now he may not have batted in his usual opening spot, but Brandon King still produced, smashing 9 fours and 3 sixes in his knock to be named player of the match.
Yeah, I'm obviously going out there, wickets falling around me as I went out there. I just had to try and dig in and stay there for the team. Knowing that I was one of the last recognized batsmen at the time with Casey, I told him that we just had to stay out there and, you know, we weren't chasing a big total. So it was good that we just could keep it simple. Yeah, to be honest, part of my strength is just adapting whatever is needed for the team. I can bat anywhere in the top 6. This was a new role given to me. It's not unfamiliar. I'm a middle order batsman first and foremost, so I'm comfortable in this position. It's extremely important points. We haven't had the best fortunes recently in this format of the game, so it's great to come away with a series win. I'm extremely happy and hopefully we can carry this into the last game and then into the next series.
International cricket commentator Fazeer Mohammed now joins us to review what happened in this match today. Faz, good form being shown here by Brandon King, 119 not out against the Windwards in a first-class match in mid-May, then 58 not out in the first ODI, and then 91 not out today. How good is he batting at the moment?
There's a touch of class about him. There's no question about it. In fact, from the first time you saw him, there was more than a hint of a Marlon Samuels. And if that might sound like very, very high praise, there is that touch, that feel about his batting. And even if he hits the big sixes and the big shots, there's a nice free-flowing style to him. He had that fantastic season with the Guyana Amazon Warriors when they played unbeaten all the way until the final a couple of seasons ago. And now he's really trying to establish himself in the West Indies team. And I think that what we've seen of him so far, you just hope that for so many of these players, Lance, that the talent is there, the ability is there. You just want that hung to be there, whether it's with the West Indies, well, especially for the West Indies, of course, because there's always going to be that discussion about franchise interests and big money elsewhere. You really want to see these players not just capitalize on these opportunities for their own good and their own careers, but also for the sake of the West Indies, to have a West Indies team always flirting with the idea of qualification, almost failing to make a tournament here or a tournament there with players of this caliber. That's really unacceptable.
Yeah, not all glossy today, of course, Faz, because they were 99 for 5 and looked to be stuttering really badly. Casey Carter, the 25-year-old who helped the West Indies win the Under-19 World Cup back in 2016, doing well also. Good to see an inexperienced player, albeit against not so tough opposition, coming in and showing some maturity.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's correct to point out that it's the Netherlands. Let's put it all in context. But if you're someone making your senior international debut and you're from St. Martin, which hardly gets an opportunity, which never has gotten an opportunity at this level of the men's game, there will be a feeling of anxiety. And it's highly unusual, by the way, to have a specialist batsman come in at number 7 and to come in with 5 wickets down and not 100 runs on the board. That is a precious situation, notwithstanding the quality or the lack thereof when you're talking about the opposition. And I could probably get to that issue again about the shortcomings in the West Indies top order. But credit to Casey Carty. He may not be someone who springs automatically to mind as a class player, as a quality player. He has that doughty, fighting sort of ability about him. And we need a bit more of that in the West Indies team. Not that you don't want to have the elegant, classy players, but you need to have players who are prepared to really buckle down and fight it out. And credit to him, he played his part, because as well as as of course Brandon King played, you need someone at the other end holding the fort.
Yes, and as we continue to point out players that, had an impact today on the bowling side, we have to give the Windies bowlers credit for, of course, limiting the Netherlands to 214, and the pick of the bowlers being Akil Hussain and Alzarri Joseph.
And the slow bowlers really did the job. And I think this is a concern for the West Indies if you're talking about moving forward, looking at greater challenges. An opening stand of 100 for the Dutch, and they didn't look in any real trouble in accumulating those 100 runs. It's only when the spinners came on, Akil Hussain, Hayden Walsh, and even Nkrumah Bonner picking up an early wicket, and then Alzarri Joseph coming back towards the end to pick up those couple of wickets. So yes, the bowlers did the job, limiting the Dutch to just over 200.
All right. So we get the idea that Faz is making team. Hopefully his internet connection comes back. But, commendable performance by the bowlers. And, of course, we have to commend the batsmen as well, who stepped up today. Faz is back. Faz, you can continue making your point.
Sorry about that. It seemed that the connection, maybe it's affected by the fact that we've had rain all day today in Trinidad for the first time in some time. But just to complete that point, I think the bowlers generally did a decent job. I thought the spinners were far more effective, and I think we need to see our pacers, our opening bowlers, even with Alzarri Joseph getting a couple of wickets towards the end. We need to see our opening bowlers being more threatening, being more challenging early on, especially against this caliber of opposition.
Yeah, just one question back on Brandon King. I know Lance started with it, but he was asked about his batting position, and we know Brandon King initially was an opener, but he spoke about the fact that he's comfortable batting at any number, and that when he started to bat, he was a middle order batsman. Do you feel like he should remain at the position that he's batting now, seeing that it seems to be working?
Well, it really depends on the situation, and it's good that you have someone with such versatility, and that's correct what he pointed out, because I was just checking myself, and maybe I was wrong, because I remember him coming into the Jamaica team as a middle order batsman.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that he reinforced that point. And it's obviously impressive that you've got someone who can fill into any one of those roles. Ideally, as you move up in the game and you spend more time at the higher level, you probably want to have your own niche in the team. You don't want to be bouncing up and down the order, and probably depending on the format, if it's T20, he might be very much at the top of the order. But I think it's good. I think it's commendable that you've got someone who's sufficiently versatile and sufficiently eager to impress whatever position he's in.
Faz, the Netherlands are ranked 14th on the ICC list. A lot of their players weren't born in New Zealand, many of them born in India, Pakistan, New Zealand, all over the place. How good is this team? And obviously, West Indies are better than they are on their roster. But is this a team that's on the rise?
Difficult to say. They have a few young players. We saw the young debutant spinner coming in and getting a wicket in the first over. The challenge for a lot of these associate member nations, Lance, is, and even for the so-called test-playing nations of Afghanistan and Ireland, because they have test status, how much cricket do they play? They're ranked 14, that's a good point that you make, but not far away from the West Indies, but there's a yawning gap, Lance, as to the amount of cricket they play. In fact, when the West Indies encountered them in the qualifying tournament for the 2019 World Cup in Harare in March of 2018, the matches played against the Dutch, if you check them for ODIs between the West Indies and the Netherlands, you won't see that one, because they didn't have ODI status at that time. So they've been bouncing around. They've lost some key players. We mentioned that after the first ODI, Ryan Tenduscarter, Peter Boran is now doing commentary. They're bringing in some new players. But even when they bring in those new players, are they really getting the amount of cricket that would allow their cricket to develop? And I think that's why the West Indies should be far more dominant against a team like the Dutch. And yes, a lot of their players are drawn from other parts of the world, because yes, there is a tradition for the game in Holland. Let's not ignore that. But still, the real passion for the game comes from outside the Netherlands.
Yeah, okay, Faz, great talking to you as usual. Of course, the third and final ODI will be on Saturday. Let's hope the West Indies can complete a sweep there, and you'll have some good things to talk about on Monday when we review the series.
Indeed, and I think it's important, just to close off on that point, that the West Indies are emphatic, that they don't just say we've won the series and you can relax.
Yes.
You need carry it through because they're tougher fish to fry if they can be fried in Pakistan.
Thanks, Faz. So, George and Mariah, I wanted to make that point there about the quality of this Netherlands team, because even though they are not a highly rated team, in both ODIs that we've seen so far, at periods in the match, the West Indies were stuttering against them.
Yeah, both with bat and ball, and that's the thing with these teams now. You can't really take anything for granted, because I keep making the point on the show that when we think that we are improving, we just have to remember that the other teams are working. They don't want to be at that level forever, and you've seen that improvement, no matter how little it is, with this Netherlands team.
Would England, Australia, India, Pakistan, New Zealand struggle with the Dutch the way we have struggled? No. I said before the series that I wanted to see the West Indies emphatically win the series, win each game. The first game, I made some allowance for the fact of conditions and the newness of playing on this tour. The cobwebs are still there in match 2. And the real thing is, if you were a fan of sport and you sat down to watch these two ODIs and you didn't know the West Indies' illustrious history, you would think that these two teams are on par. That, for me, is a disappointing thing so far. The fact of good individual performances from Shea Hope in the first game, Brandon King here with the bat, Akil Hossain had good showings in both games, is encouraging, but no more than that, because I don't know if, Shea Hope's century is useful to add to his body of work, because Shea Hope has made runs against everybody, really, though he's not been consistent. I don't know what to make of Brandon King's century against the Dutch, because it's the Dutch. And the fact is that when you get, beg your pardon, not 9 short of a century, 91. The fact is that when you come here, you can only do, you can do the basics. So he's gotten runs, which is good. Hossain has gotten wickets. Shea Hope has gotten wickets. But the fact is that nobody can be convinced by what they've seen, and that's the worrying thing. It fits into the narrative, though, because the West Indies are weak in ODI cricket and have been weak for a long time, so their struggles are nothing new. But at the same time, I thought that we would have put the Dutch away with emphasis.
Yes.
We're struggling.
Well, what I will say is the takeaway is that they can just get some confidence out of this, George. Just get some, they got some runs on the board. A couple of them picked up wickets. You have to remember that they're under the new leadership. Now, a lot of the players, Casey Carty making his debut, just a few of them getting their feet wet. So for me, that would be my positive takeaway. Yeah,
well, they won by 27 with 27 balls to spare, but the victory was definitely not emphatic if you look at the entire game as a match based on how the game played out. We go to break. A lot more to come still on the SportsMax Zone.
Stay with SportsMax on YouTube and follow us on all social pages for updates, news and entertainment.